Hello, my name is Taya, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I always make clear, this show has a single purpose, holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And today, we will achieve this goal by showing you this video depicting the arrest of an El Paso family whose crime was, now wait for it, trying to help a relative who had been attacked, but instead they found themselves in the crosshairs of a raid of their own home instead. But before we get started, I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com. And please like, share, and comment on our videos. You know I read your comments, and although I might not always get to answer your comments, I really do read them and appreciate them. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter or Facebook. And if you can, please hit the Patreon donate link pinned in the comments below, because we do have some extras there for our PAR family. Now, usually on the show, before I tell a story, I like to preface it with a short thesis, meaning I will make an assertion about police power and then back it up with a specific example. In journalism, we call this going from the general to the specific, or better yet, showing, not telling. But today the story I'm going to tell you might just be too bizarre to stick to that format. It's a tale of a family who tried to film police and ended up with their house being raided, not by one or two, but 6 El Paso, Texas police. That's right, a family who used their cell phone to exercise their constitutional rights, but instead found themselves arrested, brutalized, and facing serious charges. As you will see in the video we are showing you now, a father and his high school age daughter who simply wanted to record a police encounter in a respectful and legal fashion were looking at jail time. Which is why, instead of using this case to make a larger point about policing, I will instead do something on this show I have never done before, appealing to you, our viewers, for help. Please help me share their story as much as possible to help protect this family. But first, let me present the evidence. The encounter started after a relative of the family called for police after she was allegedly assaulted by her father. For her safety, the victims asked relatives to record her interactions with police. So Azari and her sister, and a little later her father Eddie, walked 2 blocks down from their home to the property, which, incidentally, Eddie owns, and started to record. Let's watch.
Only because I was trying to get away from him so that he wouldn't hit me, and because I knew I felt like he was going to hit me, and he grabbed me from my ankle, and that's when he hit me. And I was like kicking at him, and I tried like scratching his face, but I just kind of like...
One of the officers on the scene seemed completely unfazed by the recording. However, another officer told the family that recording the police was illegal and a form of interference. Take a look.
I'm sorry, can I get your name and badge number?
You can see it right here. Put that away, I want to take it from
Gonzalez and 3. Whoa, you cannot do that. It's all in my... You just grabbed my phone out of my hand and physically assaulted me. That is... Recording is within my full right. You cannot have to... Can I get your name and badge number, please? No, can I have your name? Eve Pineda and 3226. There's no reason for her to touch me. Okay, but there's no reason for her to get physical with me.
Just you take off. Now. You want to be arrested for interference or take off? Your choice.
Interference with what?
My investigation.
Investigation of what?
Family violence.
But what am I doing? Why are you doing this? What am I doing?
Investigation, ma'am.
I would
told you to please put your phone away because we're investigating a domestic violence.
You need to verbally tell us your name and your badge number.
You have to do
Do
that.
you want to go in for interference or can you leave, please?
Interference of what? For what? What am I How am I interfering?
I'm going to give you one last chance.
How am I
Do
interfering?
you want to be under arrest for interference or do you want to take off?
There is no reason for you to arrest me. What? Why are you touching her? You cannot touch her.
I will not hit you, but do not touch me.
All right.
I will not
I'm going to
hit
get you both for interference.
Now, even though the interpretation of interference or the victim's privacy is questioned in this instance because the interview was occurring in the public, in the outdoors, it's what happened next that is the crux of this case. That's because both Azari and her father complied with the officer's orders to stop filming and left the premises, as you can see here.
Get over here. Get over here.
She got mad at me for recording. I was just
No,
recording.
you can't get mad. She can't do anything.
Assault you again.
She assaulted physically. She grabbed me. She grabbed my phone.
Grab me as well.
No, they're both under arrest.
Let's go. Come on.
Sir, they're both under arrest right now. You wanna get another charge for evading arrest? They're interfering with my investigation.
Taya, come here. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. Get out of here.
You're both under arrest.
Sayan! 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 Sayan!
No. She's a child. Leave us alone. Get the fuck out of here. She's not trying. Fucking for children. What's wrong with you? What the fuck happened?
They got mad at me for recording. I was just recording Judith's statement.
But roughly 45 minutes later, not one, not two, but 6 El Paso police showed up at their home in full gear. And these weren't just a couple curious officers who wanted to interview the family about what they witnessed. No. This was a veritable tactical squad that raided the house, attacked, and then violently arrested both Azari and Eddie. Watch. Unfortunately, the brutal arrest was just the beginning of the ordeal for the entire family. That's because prosecutors still moved forward with the case. Azari and her father were charged with 7 different offenses. And to learn how this has affected them and what consequences they are facing, I will be joined by the family soon. But first, I want to talk to my reporting partner, Janis, who's been looking into the case and reaching out for comments. Stephen, thank you for joining me.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So first, as I discussed in the beginning of the show, the right to record police performing their duties in public is pretty much covered by the First Amendment. What does the law say in Texas?
Well, the law doesn't say anything about it. I mean, it's been controversial because they're trying to legislate this on a local level, but generally speaking, the First Amendment in any federal law, is the governing law in this case. So really, it's not a question of whether or not it's legal. It is legal, and even though some towns have tried to, as we've reported in the past in Texas, have tried to, in some ways carve out exceptions for police, that's happened in Oklahoma, really it's not constitutional to tell someone they can't record a police officer performing his public duties.
So the family left the scene. How are El Paso police explaining the need to raid their home?
Well, I sent El Paso police a very detailed email with many questions, among those that question. I also sent them an email with a video of, the cell phone video of the family leaving the scene. They said to me they could not open the link for security reasons and said, here's a link to IID complaint form if the family wants to fill it out. But they did not answer or address specifically. What they did say to me was, read the affidavit, that's the explanation. And if you read the affidavit, which I did, there's no explanation, really. There's no explanation for why the cops felt they need to follow the family all the way back to the home or conduct a raid. There's a law called fresh pursuit, which gives officers the right to break into a home, or chase someone without a warrant. But usually that involves a felony or something serious, like someone shooting someone. Not always, but. And so I think it's really, really sort of lame that the police department can't give me some explanation of why it was so important for officers to return 45 minutes later and do what they did to this family.
So you've reached out to the prosecutor's office. What are they saying about these charges?
Well, I sent them a very similar email just asking why they're proceeding on this case, what's the legal basis. They sent me an email back saying, if you want to file a Freedom of Information Act request, here's the link. And I'm like, hey, guys, I'm asking you to justify this prosecution. So far, they have not responded. I'm sure they're giving me the same runaround they give me always. We don't comment on cases that are pending, but I'm going to keep on it because I really want to know what the legal justification, and how this is legally sufficient. So I'm going to stay on it, and if I find anything out before the show, I will post it in comments.
Now, to get more details on the trauma experienced by the family and what they are doing to fight back, I'm joined by Azari and Eddie. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us and listening to our story. It means the absolute world. You have no idea how much it means to us.
So, first, tell me why you went next door. There was a domestic violence incident with your neighbor, right?
That day on Sunday, my dad and me and my sister were gonna go out to eat. And so my sister had taken a shower, my dad had just finished taking a shower, and I had just started to take my shower. And I had received a phone call from my cousin who lives 2 houses down. And at first, I didn't answer the call because I was in the middle of my shower, but as soon as she called back, I knew something was going on, so I answered. And she told me on the phone, talking all frantically, saying, "Atsari, my dad just beat me up. He left and he's gonna come right back. And he said, don't go anywhere because I'm gonna come back and beat you some more. Please come over. I'm scared. I'm hurt. Just please, I need you." So as soon as I hung up on the phone, I yelled through the door of my restroom and I told my sister Sayoen, Judith called. She's in trouble. My tío just beat her up. Please, I need you guys to go down there. I need a change. Go. And so she called my dad and they went down there. And a few minutes after I had finished changing, I went down there too.
So, you go next door to help. Why did you start recording with your cell phone?
My cousin and I and my sister, we had gone into the room so my cousin can put on her shoes. And while we were in the room, she had asked me, "Atsari, I need you to record the police and everything that's going on because my mom's not here, my sister's not here, and I forget things, especially when I'm in a panic state. I need you to record what's going on so I can have memory of it, so I could go back and I can show my mom what went down."
So, see, one of these officers suddenly becomes very aggressive. What did the officer do?
So I had actually been recording for 5 minutes prior to her even noticing that I was recording. And she walked in front of me, in between me and the other officer, went around me, and then saw that I was recording. And after she had noticed, she said, "Ma'am, this is an investigation. Unless you want your phone taken away, I need you to stop recording." And so I turned around and I looked at her and I said, "May I have your name and badge number?" That was the first thing I thought of because I was living at that house. Although I was sleeping over 2 houses down, that was still my residence and it was private property. And she has absolutely no right to tell me anything on private property that I lived in.
I noticed one officer said that it was okay to record, but just to stand a few feet back, which you did. Yet the other female officer gave contradictory commands. What were you thinking when that happened?
I was upset. I was confused. Why is it that yes, you know the law and you know I'm allowed to record, but why are you allowing her to continue to assault me and give me unlawful commands?
The reason is if you saw the officer that told her to step back, I think he was still on probation. That's what I think. And the other one, if you look at the female, she's got a gang sign on her mask. She's got that mask with that blue line. And I don't think that it's legal for them to be wearing that when they're working for we the people. Doing with a gang sign on her face. I get so mad at these cops that walk around with gang signs. I believe that is illegal. And they raise their hand to the Constitution. And there's a flag code that says that you can't do that. But the code is not enforced because we are a free people. But when you're working for us, you're not free right now. Right now, you're working for us, and you go by policies. I go by laws.
I thought I had heard one of the officers say that you should leave the scene or be arrested. Is that correct?
Yeah, she had 2 contradictory statements saying, "If you don't put your phone away, I'll take it away." And then she changed it to, "If you don't stop recording," or "If you don't stop," or I'm sorry,
Or leave.
"If you don't leave, I'm going to arrest you." And so we did. My dad called for Sayoen, and because, of course, I was living there, his main priority was Sayoen.
But she said to go home. Well, I'm going to call my daughter to go home because I said he was living there at that residence. So how am I going to tell her go home? She's already home. It doesn't make sense to me to make both of them go. But they both came to my house because I'm really scared of gang members and people with gang signs, and those people terrify me.
I wasn't about to run towards the cops' direction.
So once you were in your home, on your property, the officers continued to harass you. What did they do?
They were playing tug of war at the door with my dad and Sayo, and I had reached the inside to the where the door is. I made it inside, but they got a hold of Sayoin and they got a hold of my dad, and they were pulling them and trying to get them out. And at that moment, I froze for a moment, and the only thing that could come out of my mouth was Sayoin, Sayoin, because I saw her hand slipping from the door frame, and that freaked me out the most. And so at that moment, when I saw her hand slipping, I grabbed it and I pulled her in. You can kind of see it in the video, but not really. And after I pulled her in, I wrapped my arm around my dad's waist and pulled him in too. And he was holding on to the doorknob, so that's how he got it closed.
It seems that at least 6 officers returned to your home to arrest you. What did they tell you were being arrested for? And how did it feel when they put you in handcuffs?
Well, when they got there, I was so mad. I told them, okay, we're not going to go eat anymore. You're going to go outside and start raking them leaves. It's the next time I don't want you near those police officers. I don't want you near them. Those people are nothing but trouble and problem. Just stay away. When I went at the beginning, I even told them I'm leaving because me and those people, we don't get along. But I think you girls will be all right because you're children. How wrong I was. But when they did come to the site, we were all outside in the backyard. And I have a fish pond. So I was starting to clean the fish pond while they were raking. And then when I turned around and I got all of these police officers at my gate. And the first thing I told them, they told me that we want to talk to you. I asked them, do you have a warrant? And I told them, if you don't have a warrant, get the fuck out of my house. I don't want you, get the fuck out of here. And I kept yelling at them. And then my daughter Sayoin yelled at me back in the back. She yelled at me, says, Dad. And I turned around. I thought maybe they had some more of them behind my house. Because there's a ditch behind my house. I thought maybe they had gone through the back too. So when I turned around to look, but I have a bad leg anyway, so I don't move very fast. So when I turned and I looked at Sayon, I was about to turn back when I felt they kicked me right in the back. They kicked me in the back. I fell to the front, and then they just start beating the hell out of me, saying, stop resisting, stop resisting. Because I'm 63 years old. I weigh 150 pounds. And I got 6 cops on top of me, beating me up, telling me not to resist. And none of them were over 30 years old. None of them. 20-some-year-old kids beating the hell out of a 63-year-old man. I think they feel very proud of themselves. And then they went and grabbed that Zeddy. But I was over here on this other side.
Wait,
so I couldn't see.
You didn't tell them
what
about
happened.
Mona.
Oh, and then my dog, I have a blue heeler.
She's
Her
a
name is
service
Mona.
animal.
She's a service dog. She took 2 cops off of me. She grabbed one by the pants and pulled him off, and then he jumped on the other one on the back and pulled him off. And then one of them pulled a gun and was going to shoot my dog. And I told Mona, run, Mona, get out of here. Hi, go. But she's a blue heeler. You know, if these cops had half a brain that my dog has, they wouldn't have tried to shoot her. But she ran and she hid, and they couldn't find her.
So at first I was hiding behind the trees because I was a little bit scared to come out. But as soon as I started hearing him scream and yell and just, it sounded so painful, I had to run out. And I ran out and yelled for him, and I tried going towards him. But as soon as I tried turning to go towards him, I noticed that there were 2 more officers headed for my back door. And when I saw them, one of them had already had his hand on the doorknob, and I yelled out at them. I was like, hey, you can't. And as soon as I yelled out that, 3 of them came and stormed me, and they attacked me. I had my hands up like this, and I was walking back because I was so scared they were gonna get me. I felt so cornered. I didn't know what to do. And they grabbed me and they were moving me side to side. And then one of them, I think she was on my right, she leg sweeped me and I fell to the ground. And I had 3 cops on top of me, a male on my left, a woman on my right and another one on top of my back. And I tried yelling out, I can't breathe. I can't. And then as soon as I tried yelling that out, I turned to go see the door, and the female cop that was on my right, she put her hand through my scalp, lifted my head, and slammed it into the dirt so I couldn't see them enter our home.
So you were charged with 7 different offenses. What were you charged with?
It was 7 charges in total.
Three.
I received 3 charges. I was charged with obstructing police duties, evading arrest, and resisting arrest. And my father was charged with obstruction of police duties and resisting arrest.
Now, this has had an emotional and financial toll on your family. I know you had to pay for lawyers. I'm sure that there were associated court costs and fees. How has this affected your family?
I was having the house fixed, and I had gotten some money from the insurance to get it fixed from the house, from my home, the home insurance. And that Sunday at 1 o'clock to 2, the contractor was supposed to come and pick up $5,000 to get ready for Monday to go get the material and keep working on my house. Well, see, I only have cameras in the front of the house, and only my daughter was recording the cops, but I don't have cameras inside my house or in the backyard, because that's where we live in here and we hang out in the backyard. So I don't have cameras back there, but what for? And then we got a gate and a fence. But when we got back home about 8 o'clock in the morning the next day, my money was gone. And my neighbor saw them coming into my house. That's when Atsari, when they had her on when she saw the cop grabbing the door handle to come into my house, that's when they grabbed her hair and banged it on the ground so she wouldn't see who's coming in my house. And then they turned off my cameras inside my house, thinking that the brain was there. But see, I'm an electrician. I work with wires. The brain is not out here. The brain is hidden away in a closet. So you're not going to find it unless you know where it's at. But I didn't put it out here. I put it in the closet where it's locked. You can't get in there. Only I got the key to the closet. Nobody else had no business in my house.
One way it did affect me in a very long-term emotional way was that ever since they came over to the house and they trespassed, I've had these really bad nightmares where it starts off where I'm in the den watching TV with my dad, and I go to get ready for bed. And while I'm getting ready in the restroom, I can hear Tequila barking nonstop. Tequila is my red and blue heeler. We only got him after the whole incident. And I can hear him barking, and I'm wondering, what is he barking at? Why is he barking so much? And as soon as I go into the den, I see a whole bunch of cops knocking through the windows and banging through the doors. And the first thing they do is take away my dad. And I get so scared because I can't lose my dad. He means the world to me. And I wake up screaming and crying. And I look at the cameras as soon as I wake up. And I go check on my dad to make sure he's there, because I'm so scared they're gonna take him. And I'm scared they're gonna hurt him.
I'm sorry, I know that was really difficult to share, but thank you for sharing it with me.
How can a cop be a cop when they only have 4 months of training? And you know how it took me 12 years to get my license to be an electrician. Somebody that cuts hair, it takes 2 years to get a cosmetology license. But to carry a gun, a badge, and destroy people's lives, 4 months, children walking around with guns. Is something wrong with this picture?
Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I wanted to simply let this case speak for itself. That is, show you the facts of the case and let you draw your own conclusions about what it means. You, like me, witnessed an intelligent young girl thrown to the ground by police because she asserted her rights. You saw a father trying to keep his family safe and found himself assaulted and jailed for doing so. And now the future of this girl is in jeopardy. College, job, or potential scholarships are all in peril because she went to the aid of a family member and now has multiple charges on her record. But there is more here than the trauma of just one family. But, of course, as we can see from the general response from law enforcement, there is an imperative underlying this case that I just cannot ignore. A truism about policing that needs to be discussed so that we can have a better understanding of what we just watched. To do so, I want to talk about the case of Chicago detective Tom Sherry. Sherry was in the news lately, not due to any current misdeeds, but rather some alleged criminal behavior he was accused of committing roughly 16 years ago. Back in 2006, Sherry was stripped of his police powers due to his involvement in one of the biggest scandals in the history of the Chicago Police Department. It involved the agency's Special Operations Unit, a group of so-called elite officers who were accused of kidnapping and robbing drug dealers. Multiple members of this infamous unit were convicted of crimes, but Sherry was not. In fact, although he was stripped of his police powers due to suspicion he was actively involved in the scandal, Sherry has remained on desk duty ever since, meaning he's been pushing paper for nearly 2 decades, all the while, I might add, collecting his $87,000 salary courtesy of the Chicago taxpayers. I'm not kidding. 16 years not being a cop as the department tries to determine whether or not he's a crooked cop. You heard me correctly. After working in a unit that was kidnapping and robbing drug dealers, it's taken authorities in Chicago 16 years to figure out if Sherry is worthy of a badge. Meanwhile, he has collected $1.3 million in salary while sitting at a desk. What his case reveals is why police officers often feel so empowered to do what at times seems irrational. I mean, if you can be a part of a unit that commits crimes on a regular basis and still get paid, then why worry about transgressions like what we witnessed in El Paso? If it takes your employer 16 years to investigate your culpability in a serious conspiracy to violate your oath, then you can understand why some police officers often behave irrationally. But there is something even deeper going on here, something intangible that involves more than just a bad cop who is only now facing discipline. I thought about it when I was talking to Stephen about a book totally unrelated to policing. It's called The Man Who Broke Capitalism. The book details the rise of what many called the CEO of the century, Jack Welch. Welch headed the well-known industrial company GE, or General Electric, for nearly 2 decades. During that time, the company allegedly became one of the most valuable firms in the world. Welch himself became nearly a billionaire. But the story was different for workers. GE slashed the workforce across the country, destroying communities who depended on the company for employment. Welch sent jobs overseas and cut back on research and development. And for years, it worked. GE had one great quarter after another for shareholders. That is, until they didn't. Because it turns out that all the rosy earnings and bloated stock prices were the result of financial engineering. As the book recounts, Welch used clever accounting and financial tricks to make the books look better. The truth was, GE wasn't growing. It was simply using sophisticated accounting to make it look like it was. Of course, all this came home to roost when the company almost went bankrupt during the Great Recession. In fact, the company has never recovered from Welch's mismanagement and is now being broken up into parts as it continues to falter and its stock price sinks. So now you're probably asking, why would I bring this up in a show about cops? What does a high-flying CEO and bad policing have in common? Well, lots, if you think about it. Because one of the ways Welch made his bones on Wall Street was through layoffs. That is, cutting staff whenever and wherever he could. Welch and the other Wall Street giants justified these cuts by arguing workers were lazy, unable to compete, or just downright useless. In fact, the rhetoric that has been deployed by the so-called wolves of Wall Street about the American working class is probably worse than has been used against some of our most dangerous enemies. If you look through the history, Welch and his disciples practically made it American capitalist scripture that workers were entitled, dead weight, and not worthy of anything other than a pink slip. So again, I'm sure you're asking the question now, Taya, what the heck does a failed CEO have to do with accountability? Why are you telling me the story of corporate failure in a show about policing? Well, it's kind of simple. If you think about it, despite the fact that GE is tattered and American workers' pay has not risen in decades, Welsh still exists in the mind of corporate America as the literal king, while tens of thousands of families' lives were destroyed by his ruthless disregard for the working class. Welsh is still lionized as the best manager of the century. Meanwhile, we have a cop who still gets a hefty paycheck, even though 16 years ago he was accused of working in a unit that was deemed not just corrupt, but criminal. For 16 years, he was able to collect a full salary with benefits, accruing his pension, and all the other perks, all while people who suffered because of his malfeasance had been hung out to dry. My point here is while a cop doesn't make as much as a CEO, the two professions are similarly insulated from the havoc they create. A bad cop and a bad CEO often skirt accountability and go on to be lionized because they both dwell in the same sphere of inequality that divides and conquers us on a daily basis. Both, in many respects, work in tandem. CEOs say workers are expendable. Some cops act as if we are. CEOs take away our livelihoods. Cops take away our freedom. And both are rewarded handsomely for it. CEOs become unimaginably rich. Cops get pricey pensions that allow them to retire in style, unlike the rest of us. CEOs like Jack Welcher deified as gods of business, while cops are constantly branded as heroes, we're either for or against. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't heroic cops, and this doesn't mean there aren't a few good CEOs, but what I'm trying to point out here is that unlike us, they often don't have to answer for their crimes. Unlike average citizens, like ourselves, they aren't held accountable when they screw up. And this is the point I'm trying to make. Until we change the system, until we create a world where all of us are held to the same standard, the bad CEOs and bad cops will continue to proliferate until both law enforcement and corporate management know they cannot get away with crimes against humanity. Then all of humanity will suffer. That's why it's important to watch what they do. And that's what we will continue to do in this show. I said before, I wanted to let this case speak for itself. You, like me, witnessed an intelligent young girl thrown to the ground by police because she asserted her rights. You saw a father trying to keep his family safe by taking them home and found himself assaulted and jailed for doing so. And now the future of this girl is in jeopardy. College, potential scholarships, or a job are all in peril because she went to the aid of a family member and now has multiple charges on her record. I'm asking you to help me protect Eddie Holguin and his daughter Azari from any possibility of harassment or intimidation. We really need you to share this video far and wide and let the El Paso police know that the public cares about what happens to this family and that we are watching them closely. We need for their story to be known so these charges on their records don't continue to negatively impact their futures. El Paso, Texas is the largest police department in Texas without body cameras. So I urge folks in Texas to reach out to their representatives to request them. And if there are any members of the Texas legal community or a civil rights attorney who might want to take on this case and help the family, please reach out to me at par@therealnews.com and I can connect you with Eddie and Azari. I want to thank Eddie and Azari for speaking with me and sharing their experience with us. Thank you both for coming forward. And of course, I want to thank intrepid reporter Stephen Janis for his writing, research, and editing on this piece. Thank you, Stephen.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank mods of the show, Noli D and Lacey R, for their support. Thank you. And a very special thanks to our Patreons. We appreciate you. And I look forward to thanking each and every one of you personally in our next live stream. And I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us and we might be able to investigate for you. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can always message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter or Facebook. And please like and comment. I do read your comments and I appreciate them. And we do have a Patreon link pinned in the comments below. So if you feel inspired to donate, please do. We don't run ads or take corporate dollars, so anything you can spare is truly appreciated. My name is Taya Graham, and I'm your host of the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.